when you think about High Noon, what thoughts, emotions, memories kick in when you think about the first album that you were on for the Arkells that kicked off this, this new career for you?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. There was a lot of anxiety at that time because like I just wasn't, I'd not written anything like that. Like we were kind of chatting about that earlier, right? Where like, I came from punk background, so like that was my vocabulary. I didn't have like kind of the indie rock vocabulary. I didn't listen to like the bands that they were listening to or like, like, so I just didn't know what I could offer, and so like I was really stressed out. I had a phone call with this drummer friend of mine, actually who played in the Knockers, this guy Jeremy, and I remember calling him on the phone being like, I don't know what to do here because I don't know anything about synthesizers. Like I play, I have a Nord keyboard that I did like organ stuff on for organ chanks, and even the first couple of records of Arkells, maybe not as key centric, but very much like, Rhodes, piano, organ, very kind of, rootsy type keyboard stuff, and then I Michigan left, some string elements but not heavy on the synthesis. And I know that it felt anyway that they wanted to kind of get into that world. Like Max was very much like, I want to get it. He was giving me references of bands and I'm like, I don't know how to do this stuff, man. Like I don't know anything about synthesizers, and so I bought this keyboard called a JX3P. It's a old Roland one. Very, very simple to use. I got the programmer and I was like, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I got. I'm going to start twisting knobs, and so it was fun. It was an insane learning curve. And most records are, even when I was doing the second Ill Scarlet record, it was a massive learning curve because I'd never played on like an organ before. And the producer was like, we're going to get an organ in here. I'm like, I don't know how to use this thing. Like, so, you learn as you go. Right. And so I was very fortunate in that situation, in the High Noon situation where we worked with this guy, Tony Hoffer, and he had these two keyboards. He had the GX3P and he had a Roland D50. And I bought both of those keyboards. So I was like, oh, cool. And he knew how to use them. So I was just watching him, so I really learned how to do synthesis, like just from watching this guy, and really there's not, I still don't know like the electrical current vibes or anything like that, but like, I can twist enough knobs that I can make a sound now, so yeah, that was like, it was a really fun record to make. Like we lived down there, like Tim and I lived in a house and the other three guys lived in another house and or Airbnb or whatever. And we like, there was like, it was a month long, so I was in LA for a month and we worked every day. It was like a job. And actually writing the record was very much like a job. We went to Hamilton at this place called the Spice Factory, I think was the place. And they had a room upstairs and we set up all of our gear and we went every day from like 10 to 4, like every day, Monday to Friday. It was like a clocking in and out of like working a blue collar job, and wrote this record for over the course of the summer. And then went to LA, worked on it for a month. And it was fun. A lot of great memories. Tim and I drove, as we do every time now that we're down there, we drove to Vegas and hung out for 3 nights, while the other guys did some other stuff, just great time, great learning experience and good, bonding experience with the guys too.
So I really dug into the entire Arkells discography, had the studio headphones on, really taking it all in. From that album, from High Noon, for me, the highlights were Come to Light, Cynical Bastards, 1111, Dirty Blonde, and Leather Jacket. Those are my favorite songs from that album. I know everyone has different favorites. When I think about you on that album, a lot of times a new band member on their first album, you're like relegated to the background. The band is already successful. They have a formula. You're a new member. Okay, maybe just play a few chords in the background. But as soon as I start that album, you're like the first note on the album. You're super prominent in the first 3 songs and the rest of the album. I believe, like this could be incorrect, but I believe that you joining the Arkells actually changed the sound of the band from that album moving forward. To me, the first 2 albums were more the guitar driven, and to me, the keys weren't as prevalent. And then starting with High Noon and moving forward, the keys are like a major part of the sound. So I'm wondering, how much did it mean to you that the band had so much confidence in you as a new member to basically say, you know, do what you want, or they feature you very prominently in the songs and in the recordings. Like that's got to feel good for them to have that confidence in you.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I didn't think about it like that at the time. But yeah, looking back on it, yeah, it's crazy, right? You know, like, who's this punk rock guy like coming in want, you know, like I'm gonna play this, I'm gonna play, you know, like, but so yeah, it's amazing. They kind of really gave me kind of, you know, the freedom to really do a lot. I think keyboard wise, it was kind of always there, you know, definitely a more centered around the guitar at that time, you know, but there were, like, if you really, you know, take a song like Ballad of Hugo Chavez or like John Lennon, like those are keyboard centric songs, you know, like, I mean, the guitars in Ballad, for example, mostly just octave, bam, 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 very Motown, you know, but the keyboards are holding that. I think with Dan, he was really good at kind of masking. Dan's a real keyboard player. Masking the tone of the keyboard. So for example, if he's playing Rhodes, like he would drive it out. So, you know, it would just be this crunchy tone overlaid of a piano, you know, and it's super cool. And actually, when we first started jamming with them, I was like, you know, Dan, just tweak the knobs on the electro and make it sound the same, you know, because like I don't know what you're using or whatever, you know, and he got me into like using a delay pedal. There's a song, Michigan Left, where the keyboard part, I didn't even know it was like, I thought it was a guitar because I was listening to it. I'm like, which part do I play in this song? Because in the bridge, the piano comes in. I'm like, do I wait till the bridge? And he's like, no. He's like, there's this part that's like, it's like this delayed like 16th note pattern on the Rhodes. And I was like, well, how are you doing that? He's like, well, I got this delay pedal. So I went and bought the delay pedal. I'm like, okay, that's how he does it, you know, like, so, and a lot of the voicings are very like crunched voicing. So, you know, it's mass, but it's there, you know, and Michigan Left, especially where there's like string arrangements and stuff. And so I think it was an easier sell than if I was playing for a band that maybe didn't have a keyboard player. You know what I'm saying? Like it was an easier sell to be like, well, hey, you guys kind of already do it, you know, let's like, but you know, like I'm a piano player. So I'm like, I want to play the piano, you know, so I want to do like full chords and like, you know, like I'm a huge Billy Joel fan. So I'm like, you know, a song like Cynical Bastards, it's like, to me in my mind anyway, that's like a very like, you know, Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen type part, you know? So I'm like, can we do that? And so, you know, Max and the guys, like they listen to Springsteen and, you know, like those sorts of kind of like, they're heavy tunes, but there's also this like kind of like glitter on the top, you know, where you kind of do these arpeggios and they kind of stick out a little bit, you know, but yeah, no, super lucky that they were open to those ideas, you know, and a lot of those ideas came from them too. Like Max is a piano player, right? So like, for example, like Come to Light, like he wrote that piano riff, the da, 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 da. Like all I did was just kind of voiced it differently. So I'm like, well, this is how like I would play it, like, you know, with maybe an octave on the top as opposed to like, so you can hear it, you know what I mean? Like that's going to cut through, right? So yeah, you know, it's not so vocabularily out of their bag, but you know, they were definitely open to it and it made things very easy and great, you know.
Yeah. So I want to read what High Noon went on to achieve, so everyone's aware. So the album goes on to be the band's most successful up to that point. So 2 more Junos for Group of the Year and Rock Album of the Year. The album goes platinum. So the first 2 albums had gone gold. This one keeps the ascension. It goes platinum. Long listed for the Polaris Prize. Produces a single that goes to #1 and goes platinum. It produces a #2 single, another single that goes gold. So I'm curious, this is your first Arkells album and it's a big success, critically and commercially. How are you feeling now at this point as a member of the Arkells?
Like at the time, so like right now, like thinking back on it, or at the time?
So at the time, so that album comes out, your first album, you're nervous, you know, it's your first album, and then it comes out and it does everything you want it to do. The critics love it, the fans love it. It sells well, it wins awards. how are you feeling at that point, being the newest member of the Arkells, but now there's this track record that things have gone well with the first
Yeah,
album?
no, yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I don't, dude. I don't gravitate towards that kind of stuff. You know, like it's weird. I don't like. Sorry. Here's a good example. Like, so I did a lot of like the string arrangements on that record. So like, if you listen to like, Never Thought This Would Happen. What Are You Holding On To? I think had a string arrangement. Systematic. There's a song called Systematic there. There's like a very it's like a very dancey Jamiroquai kind of thing.
Systematic.
I was like, let's just rip Jamiroquai. You know what I mean? Like this string arrangement is a total rip of like a Jamiroquai song. So I was like, I did a lot of that stuff. And I remember the probably the what kind of got my, you know, wide-eyed a little bit, got me wide-eyed a little bit was Matt Good either tweeted or tweeted out, like when we released Never Thought This Would Happen, he was like, yo, but that string arrangement, I can't remember what the tweet said, but it was like something like that string arrangement is beautiful, like blah, 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 or whatever. And I remember being like, whoa, that's crazy. Like I grew up like with Matt Good, you know what I mean? Like not necessarily like immersed in his songs, but like, you know, like he was like a big deal. Like when I was a kid, like he's on Much Music all the time or whatever. So then here's this guy that complimenting on something that I had a part on. It was a big deal to me. But as far as everything else, like, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm going to sound very ungrateful.
I feel like it's more, you know what I mean? I feel like what's going on is it's more that you're in the moment. Like you make the album comes out, you tour, like you're just living your life as a musician, and things go well or things don't go well. That, you know, I feel like that's more of what it is. You're just more living through it as it happens than just reminiscing all the time.
You know? No, for sure. And this is honestly like the perfect band for that too, because they're all on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to say that we don't care, but it's very much like we're here to like make music and do our best, and that's literally all we can do. So it's like, you know, if we get these like accolades and not, you know, head nods, it's awesome. You know, it feels great, and it's like, oh, we did a good job, you know. You know, but it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. It's funny too, because I always kind of wonder. I'm like, are we ever really satisfied with ourselves? You know, and I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like you know what it is too? It's like sometimes when you're doing this stuff, you get like, at least with me, I get these like grandiose ideas in my head. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the craziest part. People are going to go nuts. And it's always the opposite thing that you did, you know? So then I stopped thinking about it, you know, because I'm like, I can't constantly, you know, build myself up and then go, oh, okay, but you like that other thing? Okay, well then I guess I'll try that. And then you try that next time. And they're like, but then you did this other thing. You're like, oh, fuck, man. You know, like it's impossible to keep up. And like you said about listening to the stuff, is everyone has their, you know, you gravitate to those 5 songs, but then other people gravitate to the other 5 songs. And, you know, so it's like, it's just, I don't know. Yeah. How do you keep up with it? You know, but
it's funny that you mentioned Matt Good. You know, I've been having some amazing guests on the podcast, you know, Finger 11 and I Mother Earth and the Standstills and all these great artists. And, you know, my favorite band of all time is Winter Sleep. And when I started the podcast, actually before that, so I just found a note I did of my goals from 2 years ago. And when it started the podcast, literally my only goal was interview Winter Sleep. And I interviewed them a couple months ago. And, what's funny is, you know, I'm reaching out to all these bigger artists that I'm a fan of to get them on as guests for the podcast. And out of nowhere, a couple of days ago, Facebook says, hey, you might know this guy. And it's Matt Good, like the actual Matt Good, you know? And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, is it actually him? And I look and it's like promoting some upcoming acoustic shows, all this stuff. I'm like, it's really him. So I send a request, and within like a few minutes, it was accepted. And you know, I was a huge fan growing up. You know, when I was a teenager, they were huge. I drove to Montreal to see him with his solo career. So it's kind of funny you mentioned Matt Good, and Facebook's like, you know, this guy. It's like, I think everyone knows this guy.
Social media now, everyone's a friend, and it's such a small, especially the Canadian scene, right? Like it's small, man. You know, like when you really kind of, everyone knows each other. There's some sort of what's the thing? Like, what, everyone's 3 degrees of separation away from each other, right? It's true, right? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I heard a stat that is staggering, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but on average, every person in their lifetime will know 1,000 people, which means that you're only one person away from a million. So the example is, I know 1,000 and you know 1,000, and then each of our 1,000 knows 1,000. So you're one person away from a million people, and you're only 2 people away from a billion. So you're getting close to like the entire planet, which is crazy. Yeah. So
that's it though, man. It's small. It's a small world. They say it, right? So yeah, that's a crazy statistic though.
Yeah. It stood out for me. I'm curious, what was it like hearing your songs on the radio for the first time? So I'm not sure if it's with the release of the second Ill Scarlet albums, the first time you heard your own songs on the radio, or if it was with High Noon or before that.
No, it probably would have been Ill Scarlet, because I don't remember if anything before that got played. Like, I know with Knockouts we got some like college radio stuff, but never like Can Rock or whatever, right? But yeah, the first tune probably would have been this song called Take It for Granted. And it actually, it starts with a piano, which actually Suave actually wrote the part. It's this like dance hall, like dun, 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 dun. It kind of goes through the song. It starts with that, then the drums kick in, right? So yeah, I don't. It's funny, man. These how did it feel? I don't know. I don't. I'm being very genuine. Like, I don't think about it. Like, it's funny. I think about it always before. Like, I'm always like, again, these like grandiose things, and where I'm like, oh my God, like I just want my song on the radio. Like, I remember being in the Knockouts in my band, being like, I just want radio play. Like, our songs need to go on the radio. Songs need to go on the radio. And then, you end up in a band like Ill Scarlet, who has radio play. And then all of a sudden your song's on the radio and you're at the edge doing the promo concert. And then, I don't know. And then it just feels normal. And then you're just like, oh yeah, okay, cool. What's the next thing now? What's the next song that's going to be on the radio? Or what do I have to do next? And
it seems like it's more about the anticipation than the actual result.
100%. And that's the dangerous thing, right? Because the anticipation can make you feel like, a superhero. And then a lot of the time it's a slight letdown, like where you kind of go like, oh, this doesn't feel like what I thought it was going to feel like, so you just kind of stop thinking about it, like, and that's my perception anyway. I don't know if like, I don't know. I don't picture everyone else getting giddy when the song goes on the radio, but maybe they do. I have no concept of that. Yeah.
So it's really hard for bands to have a unique sound. It seems like, with all the bands out there since the beginning of time, that maybe everything's already been done. But with the Arkells, like, I can't think of another Canadian band that sounds like the Arkells. Even globally, I can't really, I don't really hear that many other artists in the Arkells, like maybe some Springsteen you mentioned earlier, maybe some of the piano guys, because you're there, like Billy Joel or Elton John. But how important is it to the Arkells to have that unique sound? And do you know of some of the influences that actually have influenced the band? I can't hear that much in there, which is good.
It is definitely like a smorgasbord of influences, right?
Or maybe there's so many influences that you can't tell.
Right? Yeah, 100%. I mean, we definitely always like pulling from artists, that we like, or maybe that, maybe even necessarily that we don't like, but going like, hey, that band did something really cool, or that artist did something really cool. A lot of it does come from Max, I think, where he, when you talk about being forward thinking, he is very much that, and, he doesn't ever really want to repeat himself, so like if he does a record that, like, at the time, maybe he's really influenced by Springsteen, the next record, he'll be like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to be influenced by Dua Lipa. I don't fucking know, what I mean? Or whatever it is, like, and so he's very much that guy. And I lean on him a lot with that stuff, like where, when we're coming up with, say, the parts or whatever, I'm always like, dude, just give me 10 references, because we're very good at being chameleons, where like, for example, like I can take a song. Okay, there's a song called Strong on our newest record, and it's a piano ballad. And it went through so many different, like, like Max had his part, and he was like, and actually, I think he sang it once, and then the piano part under it changed, like I shit you not, like 7 times before we finally landed on something. And even then, it's hard. It's always hard to revert. Sorry, it's always hard to change what you from where you came. Like, so if we have a song that has a particular piano part, it's hard to then go, well, here's another one that I kind of think is better. And then to go, yeah, but the other one I was listening to it for like 6 weeks, and so how do you change your frame of mind? 7 different takes. And so the last one, I was like, you know what? Like, what are we doing? Like, we're trying all these different things where maybe we're trying to Ben Folds thing. Okay, it's cool. I'm losing interest after the first chorus. Okay. And then we try a very indie rock one where it was like this, quarter notes, like, let's just be droney about it. Okay, still losing interest. I'm like, okay, who does the big piano ballads? Adele. Adele does the big piano, like she does all big piano ballads. I'm like, what does she do? Because like her songs are interesting and she has these like huge vocal melodies, but there's this undercurrent of a piano part, particularly with her, where it just keeps you in it. It's like a drone, and then you're focusing on the vocal. So I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking copy an Adele song. And I don't remember which one it was. It was maybe like, what's the one that somebody like you? Is that a song of hers?
Yeah.
And I literally was just like, okay, it's a 16th note pattern, or I can't remember how fast the BPM was when we were recording to, but a quick and I just was like, okay, I can't copy the exact same notes because the key is different, the chords are different, but I can copy the rhythm. So then you just kind of fashion this thing, and it worked out. And it was a little bit of a battle. We sat on it for probably 4 or 5 months before we were like, no, yeah, this is the one. And so just talking about that sound is like, it does come from a lot of borrowing. I don't think there's like a very, I don't know. I don't have like I don't think I always wondered that too, like with a guy like Billy Joel, like, does he have a sound, or does he just kind of take from all these, like different languages of music and go, here's my sound, and that's very much where we come from, where Max listens to so much music. It's crazy. Like dude, I listened to like Smash by The Offspring yesterday. You know what I mean? I like
so good.
But do you know what I mean? Like I like 3 records, like that I can put on front to back. And even when I find a new record, I'm like I'll listen to it on repeat for like 1,000, and then I'll be like, I'm done with this, But he's like constantly investigating new stuff, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with because I'm like, dude, I don't know, I can't process all this. I don't know how you're processing it, but he does. And so it does allow us to kind of, like I said, be chameleons a little bit, where we can kind of, take from everybody and make it different enough that it kind of becomes our own, And I think a lot of artists kind of do that, which is great.
I kind of stole the last question. So there's a fan question. I kind of asked the first half of it. So this is from Daryl Surgener from Ottawa, Ontario. He wants to know, who would you say are the band's biggest musical influences? So that's kind of what we talked about. But then the second part, and what is the music that is influencing the band now? So is there any, like, currently anything that you guys are enjoying and might be influencing the music a bit? Dua Lipa? Everyone else? Undeniable, that album's so good.
Hey man, it's an amazing record. It's hard. It's kind of a weird. Every time that COVID made things weird, right? Because normally we would get really influenced by something, we'd write a record and then we tour it, right? So right now we're kind of in this kind of like, we should be touring the records. And when you're kind of doing that, you're slowly picking up on things, and then you kind of go, oh yeah, actually I was really influenced by that. It's kind of hard to, I don't know. I know for me, I got really into this band Turnstile. They released a record called
It's like heavy, but a lot of fun, right? It's like Nirvana having a good time.
Absolutely. It is the coolest record. You kind of have to be able to stomach the aggression. But I personally like that sort of stuff. It gets the blood going, for me. But I wore that record out, man. Like I was listening to it maybe 3 or 4 times a day. Like it's fucking wacky, but like it's such a great record. And they use like synthesizers in a really cool way. And they have such a cool, like, it's just so much energy. So yeah, I mean, okay, so we did just talking about influences, we did a Grey Cup performance late last year, and we had this idea to kind of start with years in the making, but can we do it in kind of like those, those Georgia, those like what are they called, like the horn lines, you know what I mean, like the brass lines, right? So the cool thing about those southern brass lines is they have these kind of like drum lines, sorry, rather, where they, like marching drum styles thing. On one of the Turnstile songs, there's a breakdown at the end of the song. I can't remember the name of the song. I think it's Mystery maybe. And it breaks down to this heavy drum line. There's a boom, and it's super cool. And I was like, we kind of started talking about this kind of Florida, Georgia breakdown thing or whatever. And I was like, I just grabbed it like in Pro Tools and I put it over top of Years in the Making. I had to like slow it down or speed it up. And it worked so perfectly. And I was like, guys, like this is what we need to do. And Max loved it. He was like, and then we put the horns over top. It all worked out. So, like where you don't think there's going to be an influence, it's like a heavy metal band. Like, why are they influencing like a pop indie band? But it, you take from everything. And then we ended up re-recording, like, Tim went in and actually did his own version of what that imported audio was. And it worked out so great. And it was such a fun moment. And we ended up all having, I think, or not all of us, Max didn't, but like between the four of us, we had like these like snare drums, and I think Mike had these like big crash cymbals, and I don't know, we might have not have been able to mock that idea up if we weren't listening to Turnstile, I don't know, but yeah, so yeah, I don't know, everyone's got different things that they're listening to here and there.